And do those chances reduce as we get nearer to the final moment, or do they actually increase because of the pressure effect on Saddam, as the whole scheme is designed to put?
Had we had a second resolution, then we would have been able to sort of work out the metrics of that, Sir John. If I may sort of spell out what was in my mind and the difficulty. We had the report on the 27th of January. Far from saying Saddam was complying, it said in great detail, explained why he wasn't complying. We then had the report on the 14th of February, which was more qualified, but did not say he was complying. It's because, as I say, the moment Dr. Blix had said, this man, in my judgment, is complying, he would have added a codicil, this matter for Security Council, but, you know, on the record, in public, there would have been, even if I wanted to, which I did not, there would be nothing whatever to say to Parliament here, the House of Commons, other than we have secured our objectives and I'm pleased to say no British troops will be put in harm's way. That would have been the end of the story. But as at the 7th of March, that was not the case. And in addition, which is a much, if I may say so, neglected part of the story, we had this lengthy, detailed document from Dr. Blix, which I had read on the plane over there. And
you saw a draft, I think, as we were a member of the
commission. So
yes.
We quite properly saw a draft, and I read it on the plane over. The only difference between the draft and the final version was that the final version was 6 pages longer, and it had more detail, but didn't detract from the judgments in the document. And it was around that time that I thought there really was a very serious problem in Iraq. I mean, I'd always thought it was serious, but having read this, and I thought that this was the most contemporaneous assessment of the scale of the task of disarming Saddam Hussein. I mean, it didn't say we know they've got these things. We said 29 separate chapters of unanswered disarmament questions. But this is, after all, in March 2003, 12 years after the Gulf War. Very serious indeed. I didn't bring this out in the memorandum, but it's quite an important part of the story, since, Sir Lawrence, you're talking about Dr. Blix, and I've checked my recollection very clearly. When I had this private meeting with Dr. Blix, and Simon MacDonald and Jeremy Greenstock were there, I said to him, I've just read this, I've read every word of this document, and he said to me, that's more than I've done. I was astonished by this. I mean, those of us absolutely astonished that here was the head of that UNRWA who hadn't read this document, which was about to go to the Security Council. Anyway, I thought took it as a sort of quip. But I then said to him, well, word's the effect, I assume you're going to present it to the Security Council so that they can read it in advance of your presentation.
Was the meeting to be the following day?
Yes. This was, I got to New York sometime on the 6th, which was a Thursday. And the ministerial meeting of the Security Council was on the Friday. So went to the Security Council, and to my astonishment, no document. And it only became available, and again I checked on this, at the end. Now, I thought it was extraordinary that...
But, I mean, are you saying that if this document had been available, it would have swung round opinion in the Security Council at this time?
Well, first of all, Sir Lawrence, I'm saying it was the UNRWA Commission which produced it. Others on the UNRWA Commission from different nationalities, including one from a nationality whose government was saying there wasn't much of a problem, were telling us privately a very different story, that there was a problem. So if I may finish, Sir Lawrence, Dr. Blix, since he ran this organisation, I assume, had made the decision to have the document produced. And at the minimum, my judgment was that having produced the document, he had a duty to make it available to the Security Council. I can't judge what the reaction would have been of other members of the Security Council, except I think most people around the table reading the document would have come to the same conclusion as me, that here was a problem. And to answer your question about the time, by this stage, we're 4 months November, December, January, February, 4 months after the passage of 1441, which is quite a time, and Dr. Blix himself had said, all this can be resolved in a relatively short space of time.
But isn't that the issue by the 7th of March? That a lot of the discussion within the Security Council was not that there are many difficult problems to resolve, but that we need time to do it, and time was what you didn't have because the military clock was ticking very fast and was going to come down very soon.
I mentioned in my memorandum Dr. Blix's very impatient reference to the behaviour of Saddam, in which Dr. Blix, in one or other of his reports to the Council, says Saddam could have closed all these dossiers 12 years ago had he complied, and Dr. Blix himself says in one of his reports, all this could be now resolved in a short time. And Sir Lawrence, what we knew, we didn't need any intelligence about this, we knew from the behaviour of Saddam Hussein is that he was adept at playing the international system. So he'd give a little bit and they'd take it back. He led to his demise. And as I said in my reflections, I worked on the basis that he was an extremely unpleasant leader of a very unpleasant regime, but they were rational. And I couldn't work out why they were refusing to cooperate when we were saying publicly, and anyway, he had his, knew what was going on in Britain, that we would take yes for an answer.
But it was clear already, and you've alluded to this, that the Security Council was deeply divided on this issue and had been divided for some time. The reason that maybe that you're so irritated with Dr. Blix was that in many respects our strategy had become dependent upon Dr. Blix, because as you've indicated, it was what he said to the Security Council. Let me just quote to you from a speech you made to IISS, the worthy body you mentioned before, just before the presentation on the 14th of February.
Of February, okay.